and estimate your spend for the year. I think they actually know this, Mr. Speaker, but prefer to play games rather than talking the facts.
That brings to an end the debate for this period of time. C'est le temps pour les déclarations des députés. It's time now for member statements. Député de Haute-Gaspésie.
Honourable Member for Haute-Gaspésie, Métis, Matane, Matapédia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People are cynical. It's our time for us to take some action. We need to take up our responsibilities and change the way we do things, because only 30% of people these days vote. Political parties are in charge, but they've forgotten the essential, the reason that we're here, not for the people we represent. Parties maintain the myth, in fact, and it's not true. Our democracy is not only sick, it's become a real masquerade. And individual members must take steps to denounce this type of behavior in the House of Commons. Parties who are responsible for this dynamic are doing everything to prevent change from occurring. In the recent parliamentary session, Force et Démocratie became a party. We're proud to present a motion to give all members a right to make changes to this dynamic. And in order to do so, each member must have the individual power to change things collectively.
Statements by members. The Honourable Member for Mississauga South.
As the year comes to a close, Mr. Speaker, allow me to highlight a few initiatives I have worked on in Ottawa this year. On the Status of Women Committee, we completed a study on eating disorders, which has already generated useful discussion and action. In March, as chair of the Special Committee on Violence Against Indigenous Women, I was honoured to table a report with recommendations for our government about missing and murdered Aboriginal women. In July, I sat on the Justice Committee, which studied Bill C-36, the new prostitution bill. Protecting the many victims is the priority of this new legislation, which came into effect very recently. This fall, I was delighted to rejoin the House Environment Committee, as well as the Board of Internal Economy, which oversees all financial and administrative matters of the House of Commons, including security after the October 22nd attack. I also tabled a private member's motion which addresses an immigration regulation loophole on proxy, telephone, fax, or internet marriages. I've been overwhelmed by the positive response to it, and I'm looking forward to the vote tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
I participated in my 7th Parade of Lights in Sturgeon Falls in the municipality of West Nipissing. What fun! Thanks to Santa's community health, hundreds of children enjoyed the candies, the juice, and the magic of Christmas. This community of 13,000 has a parade with 100 floats, longer than much bigger cities. Sturgeon Falls is one of, if not the, most bilingual community in Canada. 2 cultures, 2 languages in harmony, working, living, and playing side by side. Le défi des Lumières met en valeur.
The Parade of Lights shines a light on this excellent community. And there's so much community spirit. The West Nipissing Firefighters Santa Telethon recently raised $32,600 to help families. Some 500 seniors will participate in the annual Christmas supper tomorrow.
And so much more. Nipissing West, joie de vivre, vous faites notre fierté.
You make us proud.
Honourable Member for Northumberland, Quinte West.
I'm proud to rise today and speak to our government's strong record on health care. Since forming government, health transfers have increased by almost 60% under our Conservative leadership. In 2014-15, the Government of Ontario alone will receive $19.2 billion through major transfers, an increase of $8.3 billion from 2005-6. Canada also has the highest number of physicians working than ever before. Last year, Canada had the most physicians per capita in our history, over 77,000 doctors. Doctors educated abroad represent over 25% of the doctors who entered the workforce in 2013. The word is out, Mr. Speaker. Canada is one of the top destinations in the world to practice medicine. And, Mr. Speaker, through you to all of my constituents in Northumberland, Quinte West, Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy New Year.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier.
On November 1st, our community lost one of its better minds when Professor Leslie Armour passed away. After obtaining a PhD at the University of London in 1956, he taught at many universities and held chairs in philosophy at the Dominican University College, St. Paul's University, and the University of Ottawa, where in 1996 he became Professor Emeritus. A Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, Dr. Armour had a distinguished career as philosopher and commentator on social economics. Indeed, since 2004, he'd been editor of the International Journal of Social Economics. The Canadian Encyclopedia said of him, like many Canadians foremost in their fields, his work is better known abroad than at home. Next spring, his family will host a memorial service to celebrate his life. I hope to be there, and in the meantime, we'll endeavor to read his last book, Inference and Persuasion, an Introduction to Logic and Critical Reasoning. Now, however, our condolences go to his grandchildren, his children Carol, Adrienne, and Julian, and to his wife Diana.
Member for Bruce Gray, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to congratulate sponsors and organizers of the 75th anniversary of the annual CFOS Sun-Times Christmas Fund broadcast in Owen Sound. Christmas Fund broadcast began in December of 1940 and was created to raise funds for food baskets that were to be distributed to local families for the holidays. Both CFOS and the Sun-Times began and still support this tradition after 75 years. This year, more than $11,000 of the total funds raised will support the hospital campaign to improve cancer care and heart health treatment at hospitals with Bruce Gray Health Services. The remaining funds will support 21 local charities. Hundreds of people performed during the 7-hour broadcast that brought in over $17,000. Fund is still receiving donations and is on track to reach their goal of $30,000. Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate and thank both CFOS and the Sun-Times on their tremendous effort to support our local community. This truly is what Christmas is all about. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you. The
Honourable Member for Montmorency, Lille-Pascal, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Gilles Michaud, a resident of Kamouraska, has done so much and continues to do so much to help improve lives for others. He spent many years as part of an administrator of the Community Futures Development Corporation in the county. And sometimes people experience very difficult things, and it's a very profound feeling of injustice that I must report to the House that Mr. Michaud's son, Jean-René Michaud, was shot several times. He was a police officer stationed in Kamloops, and he was involved in a routine operation that didn't end well. Our thoughts are with them. We must remember that, in fact, peacekeeping officers face risks on a daily basis, and keeping us safe, and we owe them a lot. Allow me to take this opportunity to say that Mr. Michaud's son paid dearly for stopping a hardened criminal. Let's pray that his state of health will improve. Our thoughts and prayers are with him, and we hope that he will recover quickly.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to recognize people of all ages and abilities in Elmo-Transcona that are taking the opportunity to give back to our community this Christmas.
What a great writing.
Christmas is a wonderful time to teach our children about the joy of giving as well as receiving. Two of my younger constituents, Sarah and Noah, at just 8 and 6 years old, understand that it's never too early to start giving back, and were recently honored by Cystic Fibrosis Manitoba for their charitable giving to Winnipeg Harvest and the Bernie Wolf Breakfast Program.
Fantastic.
Many community groups like the Elmwood Community Resource Centre, Transcona Food Bank, and Riverwood Church Community also recognize the importance of supporting those in need. Their special initiatives are aimed at making Christmas fun and festive for those with less, who depend on community donations and volunteers to create unforgettable memories for families in their community. During the Christmas season, we are reminded of the importance of giving generously. By giving, we help to ensure the holidays can be enjoyed by everyone in our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here, here. Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With Christmas and holiday season upon us, families, communities, and businesses in my riding of Calgary East are joining together to celebrate this wonderful time of the year. From breakfast with Santa at Marlborough Community Centre to Nutcracker in a nutshell, presented in 30 minutes for young children to enjoy at the Cardinal Theatre, and Christmas dinner at the Glen Moraine. As Christmas approaches, I encourage my constituents to reach out to those in need and give generously to make this a happy occasion for the less fortunate. I wish to thank the volunteers of Calgary East who give their time and energy all the year round to make our community a happy and a safe place for everyone. let me take this opportunity also to wish all my Jewish constituents and friends a happy Hanukkah, and my Chinese and Vietnamese constituents and friends a happy New Year as well. Mr. Speaker, I wish everyone Merry Christmas, safe and happy holidays, and a prosperous New Year. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, last Friday I had the honour and privilege of attending a rededication ceremony in my riding at Corbett Public School. The ceremony was held to honour the memory of Private Demetrius Deplaros, a member of the 1st Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment who was killed in Afghanistan by an IED shortly after his 24th birthday on December 5, 2008. Private Deplaros was a former student at Corbett Public School, and a special plaque will now hang in his honour in the school's hallways. This plaque will help to ensure that future generations never forget this brave young man and his sacrifice on our behalf. I want to thank Kathy and Jerry for raising such a brave young man who personified the very best qualities Canadians have to offer. And I want to thank the Oak Ridge Royal Canadian Legion Branch 73 and the members of Toronto Police Services 41 Division for organizing and hosting this important event. Our women and men in uniform stand always ready to defend us, and I will always remain committed to improving services for veterans and to making Remembrance Day a national statutory holiday.
The Honourable Member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader just can't help but fight against Canadian jobs when he's travelling abroad. Canadians won't soon forget when he went to Washington to attack the Keystone XL pipeline project.
Never forget.
This time, the leader of the NDP attacked Canada while on a trip to Paris. As reported by Le Devoir, the NDP leader said that Europe should not let itself be bound by the historic Canada-EU trade agreement. Mr. Speaker, this free trade agreement is supported by Canadians from coast to coast to coast. It'll give Canadian businesses preferential access to a market of over 500 million new customers, and it'll boost the Canadian economy by 12%, which in turn will create thousands of jobs right here at home. Canadians know that the NDP are ideologically anti-trade, and this attack by the NDP leader on Canadian jobs is further proof that Canada cannot afford the risky economic theories of the NDP.
Hear, hear.
Honourable Member for Davenport.
For years, I've fought alongside West End Toronto residents to get the provincial and federal governments to listen to concerns about using dirty diesel trains on the Up Express. Diesel is a known carcinogen. The WHO ranks it right up there with mustard gas and arsenic, yet Liberals and Conservatives are prepared to roll the dice on the health of our children and our elderly. Now, due to our community pressure, Metrolinx on Thursday will announce a date for electrification, but let me be clear. This line should have been electrified in the first instance and must be electrified as soon as absolutely possible. It will also announce a price to ride what is being called a boutique service for out-of-town business people. Rumored to be between $20 and $30, this is yet another slap in the face of Toronto. With only 2 stops along the 23-kilometer route, this train won't even connect to TTC's service. We paid for this train, and it must be clean, electric, affordable, available, and public transit for the people of Toronto.
Honourable Member for Burlington.
Mr. Speaker, our government is fulfilling its promise to balance the federal budget. And we are now in a position to fulfill our promise to help Canadian families balance theirs. A single parent, Mr. Speaker, a single parent making $50,000 a year with 2 kids will see almost $1,000 in relief and benefits. Families earning less than $30,000 a year will see an average benefit of $1,200 a year. Under this government's plan, all families with children will benefit. A vast majority of these benefits will flow to low and middle income families. Since coming to office, we've introduced the Enhanced Universal Child Care Benefit, the Children's Arts Tax Credit, and now the Family Tax Cut. This government lowers Canadians' taxes. We balance budgets. We put money back in the pockets of hardworking Canadians, and we will continue to stand up for Canadians day in and day out.
The Honourable Member for Random, Burin, St. George.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Northern Harvest Sea Farms Group, a company with operations in Atlantic Canada, including in my riding of Random, Burin, St. George's. The company achieved 4-star certification when its subsidiary in Stephenville, Northern Harvest Smolt Limited, earned its Best Aquaculture Practices certification from the Global Aquaculture Alliance. This recognition makes it the first salmon company in the world to achieve such designation. In addition to receiving Best Aquaculture Practices certification for its hatchery, Northern Harvest has also received this certification for its processing plants, farm sites, and feed mills. As well as a hatchery in Stephenville, the company has other facilities throughout the Coastal Bays region of Random and St. George's. The employees who come from the small communities along our coastline have proven to be the key ingredient in building the aquaculture industry and turning Northern Harvest into a world leader. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members to join me in congratulating Northern Harvest Sea Farms Group on this impressive accomplishment and wishing the company and its employees many more successful years in the aquaculture industry. Thank you.
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the constituents in my riding of Scarborough Centre have spoken loud and clear. They want a government that will put more money into the pockets of hard-working Canadian families. And that is precisely what this government has done and will continue to do so with our Conservative government's latest tax cuts. In fact, Mr. Speaker, every family with children will benefit. That's about 4 million Canadian families. With the expansion of the universal childcare benefit, families in Scarborough Centre and right across Canada will receive nearly $2,000 per year for every child under 6 and $720 per year for every child between 6 and 17. But the Liberals and the NDP have said they will take this money away from mums and dads to pay for expensive and burdensome programs through big government bureaucracy. Mr. Speaker, only our Conservative government knows that parents, whether they work inside or outside the home, can be trusted to make the right choices for their own families.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, when the member for Papineau became leader of the Liberal Party, he made promises, a ton of promises. He said that it was a revival of the honest, transparent, and open Liberal Party. Sure thing. In the NDP, for a long time, we've been long accustomed to Democratic nomination meetings, and we were happy to hear that he wanted to follow our example, except that we realized that once a Liberal, always a Liberal. Recently, a fight broke out at the coronation of Andrew Leslie in Orleans. Several Liberals were furious because their leader blocked David Butchie's candidacy in favor of his buddy, Andrew Leslie. Remember him? He's the one that charged taxpayers $72,000 to move from Ottawa to Ottawa. At any rate, the meeting went sour, and Liberal supporters felt cheated after having been promised open nominations. Now, contrary to the Liberals, we have a dynamic team, a strong leader, and we're more than ready to replace the Conservatives next year.
The honourable member for North Vancouver.
Mr. Speaker, under the strong economic management of our Prime Minister, we are in a position to fulfill our promise to help Canadian families balance their budgets. With the enhancement of the universal child care benefit, mums and dads in North Vancouver and across this country will receive nearly $2,000 per year for every child under 6 and $720 per year for every child between the ages of 6 and 17. Partnered with the family tax cut, the vast majority of benefits will flow to low and middle income Canadian families. But the Liberals and the NDP want to take this money away and spend it on big government bureaucracy instead. Mr. Speaker, removing essential tax cuts like the enhanced universal child care benefit and the family tax cut is not looking out for Canadians. Only our Conservative government can be trusted to balance the budget while relieving the tax burden on Canadian families.
I have the honour to inform the House that the Clerk of the House has received from the Chief Electoral Officer a certificate of the election and return of Mr. Jim Iglinski, member for the Electoral District of Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to present to you Mr. Jim Iglinski. member for the electoral district of Yellowhead, who has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take his seat. Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to present to you Mr. Jim Aglinski, member for the electoral district of Yellowhead, who has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take his seat.
Let the member take his seat. I have the honor to inform the House that the Clerk of the House has received from the Chief Electoral Officer a certificate of the election and return of Mrs. Pat Perkins, member for the electoral district of Whitby, Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to present to you Mrs. Pat Perkins, member for the electoral district of Whitby, Oshawa, who has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take her seat. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to present to you Mrs. Pat Perkins, member for the electoral district of Whitby, Oshawa, who has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take her seat.
Take her seat. Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Burnaby.
Today, the United States Senate Intelligence Committee released a report showing that so-called enhanced interrogation techniques used on militants were ineffective and never once produced information which prevented a terrorist plot. Now, the conclusion is simple. Torture doesn't work. Yet here in Canada, this Conservative government has repudiated basic Canadian values by issuing directives to CSIS, the RCMP, and the CBSA that allow them to use and share information obtained through torture. Will the government rescind these directives immediately?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, very simply, this is a report of the United States Senate. It has nothing to do whatsoever with the government of Canada.
The honourable member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
It would be nice to have a government that respects Canadian values, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Veterans Affairs told us yesterday that he cut 1,000 specialists to help our veterans, but he claimed that they were just back-office bureaucrats who spent their days making photocopies. But that's not true. Only 10% of the cuts were to back-office administration. Why is the Prime Minister letting his minister mislead our veterans? Why won't he fire the minister? He's incompetent, and veterans do not trust him. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we understand very well the NDP's position. They want to protect bureaucrats at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and they want to cut services.
In line of this question, precisely what I'm talking about. In fact, in the Veterans Independence Program, the department cut 100 people whose only job was to process small claims from veterans that are now allowed automatically. That's what we did. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we increased benefits under the Veterans Independence Program. The NDP voted against that.
for Burnaby, New Westminster.
Tell that to the 50% of veterans that can't even access disability benefits, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, when asked about cuts to frontline services, the minister responded, and I quote, "Veterans have been saying that we should in fact reduce." But the minister can't tell us the name of these veterans who have been supposedly coming to him demanding cuts. And in the minister's fantasy world, he's only been cutting backroom and internal services. He also says that cuts in his department are somehow reinvested back into service. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. This minister has lost the confidence of veterans. Why doesn't the Prime Minister fire him?
The right honourable Prime Minister, I could give dozens of examples of where we have streamlined back office support, including, of course, eliminating photocopy and processing clerks in place of digital medical records, Mr. Speaker. But there's the difference. The NDP wanted to keep bureaucrats to do nothing but process and delay payments to veterans under a program they actually voted against. Mr. Speaker, on this side, we cut down the bureaucracy, we deliver service to the veterans.
The honourable member for Hull Aylmer. Mr. Speaker, for months, the Minister of Employment has denied the problem in terms of delays with EI. And he woke up yesterday after being embarrassed by an NDP order paper question. He said that cuts wouldn't affect services to Canadians, and yet processing times have gone up by 54% since 2006, and the number of complaints has gone up by 40% in a year. The minister's cuts have had major effects on the beneficiaries of employment insurance. Does he believe that hiring temporary workers is a real solution for the long term? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. Obviously, the government is dedicated to giving a good level of service to those who benefit from employment insurance. I would like to thank my parliamentary secretary, Mr. Speaker, for his important work. He gave me a report on the acceleration of processing for EI claims, and we are implementing that with the commitment that we will give employment insurance benefits to those who are qualified as soon as possible. The Honourable Member for Hull Aylmer. This minister is incompetent. He's responsible for the mess at the Social Security Tribunal and for the temporary foreign worker program boondoggle. And it's his fault that the unemployed can't access timely benefits. He's fired 20% of his employees since 2010, but claimed that there would be no impact on Canadians. Come on. Will the minister stop playing the sorcerer's apprentice and fix the problems he's responsible for? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has just said, when it comes to offering efficient public service, the NDP never wants to find efficiencies, but this government is proud of the work that we've done. We have reduced by 42% the costs for each request processed in the EI program. That's because we have found less expensive ways to deliver important programs to Canadians. That's what taxpayers want. That's what taxpayers expect from us. And I have accepted the report from my parliamentary secretary for additional means to accelerate requests.
Mr. Speaker, we have a sacred obligation to our veterans who chose to put everything on the line for their country. This Prime Minister has denied this obligation in court and has slashed veteran services. Why is his priority a $2 billion tax break for wealthy families like his and mine instead of properly supporting our veterans?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unlike that party, we provide benefits both to families and to veterans. The honourable member makes reference to a court case that is actually a court case against a previous Liberal policy. In any case, Mr. Speaker, we have repeatedly enhanced the benefits under that policy to the tune of some $5 billion, opposed every step of the way by the Liberal Party, who's voted against all those benefits. They can keep voting against those benefits for veterans. We will keep bringing them forward.
The honourable member for Papineau.
The Prime Minister has cut hundreds of frontline Veterans Affairs staff. He has cut Veterans Affairs Service Centres. He has cut funding for war graves. On top of that, he actually gave bonuses to managers to cut those services. Devastating cuts for our veterans, but a $2 billion tax break for the most wealthy. Where are the government's priorities?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in fact, the truth is the complete opposite of everything the member just said. We have actually increased by many-fold the number of service centres there are now for our veterans in this country. And in terms of specifically, Mr. Speaker, war memorials, we've increased the funding for that, for the Community War Memorial Program, voted against by the Liberal Party. We enhanced the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, also voted against by the Liberal Party. But, Mr. Speaker, as I know, what the Liberal Party and the NDP, what they want to do is make sure they protect those bureaucratic jobs at Veterans Affairs instead of giving the services to the veterans. That's what we're doing on this side.
The honourable member for Papineau. Mr. Speaker, we have a sacred obligation to our veterans who defended our country and who risked their lives to do it. The Prime Minister has chosen to cut services, to close offices, and even to offer bonuses to managers who cut veterans' programs. Billions in dollars in tax credits for the most wealthy, but major cuts for our veterans. Where are the government's priorities? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's completely the opposite. We have increased services for veterans and service centres for veterans. And I could quote one example. The program for veterans independence, we have eliminated 100 jobs that were just there to delay payments. But we have increased payments to veterans under this program. But in any case, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party voted against these increased programs for our veterans. We have improved these programs, and we will continue to do that. While the Minister of the Environment is in Peru at the Climate Change Summit, her own department has published a report that shows that Canada has made no progress in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the last year. No progress. And the main source of greenhouse gas emissions? The oil and gas sector. When will the government show us a plan to regulate our biggest emitters? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, obviously on this side, we are not in favor of a carbon tax, which is proposed by the NDP. But for the first time in history, Mr. Speaker, we have reduced greenhouse gas emissions at a time when the economy is growing.
Specifically to the issue of oil and gas regulations, this government's position has been clear that we want to see oil and gas regulations on a continental basis, given the integrated nature of this industry. Mr. Speaker, with the current conditions in the oil and gas sector, this government will not consider unilateral regulation of that sector.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the report shows that per capita our emissions are actually rising. So the UN Secretary General, Environment Canada, in fact the whole planet knows that Canada is failing. Yet the Environment Minister arrives in Lima with empty promises and more talking points, but nobody is actually fooled here. Ban Ki-moon has begged Canada to show more ambition and vision on the climate file. It's about global responsibility, not about domestic politics. So when will this government finally take climate change seriously? Exactly.
The Honourable Parliament Secretary of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, our government is working with our international partners to achieve a fair and effective climate agreement. We are a founding member and major financial contributor to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. We are also addressing short-lived climate pollutants under the chairmanship of the Arctic Council. we have fully delivered on our Fast Start financing, which has helped more than 60 developing countries reduce emissions and adapt to climate change, Mr. Speaker. And we've recently announced more money for the Green Climate Fund. And we believe any international climate agreement must include meaningful and transparent commitments from all major emitters, Mr. Speaker, and we'll do our part without a job-killing carbon tax.
The honourable member for Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians pay EI premiums so they have insurance if they lose their jobs, so they can still pay the bills and put food on their family's table. Under the Conservatives, though, frontline services have been cut and waiting times have grown. Now, this isn't about hiring a few temps to help out for a few weeks. This is about finally fixing the backlog. What is the minister doing to cut down on these endless delays once and for all?
Prime Minister underscored, the NDP doesn't understand that we have an obligation to deliver public services efficiently, and we have done just that. We've reduced the cost for processing each EI application by 42% through automation and through smarter procedures, Mr. Speaker. And that's why the vast majority of EI applicants receive their benefits within the service standard of 28 days, and we're going to improve our service, Mr. Speaker, because I'm implementing many of the recommendations that I received from my hardworking parliamentary secretary from Nova Scotia, and the NDP should be thanking us for that, Mr. Speaker, instead of criticizing.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, after letting go of a fifth of his department's staff since 2010, probably bureaucrats again, the so-called Minister of Employment has resigned to rehiring 400 temporary employees to deal with unacceptable delays at EI. And the number of complaints has gone up by 40% since last year. It's unacceptable to make unemployed Canadians wait when they already have to deal with a 2-week waiting period. Does the minister really believe that hiring temporary employees is a real solution to the disaster that he himself created? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the NDP has the same solutions to every challenge. Hiring dozens of thousands of members of the government unions, Mr. Speaker. We, on the other hand, believe that we need to deliver public services in an efficient way. And that is why, through automation and other improvements, we have reduced by 42% the costs for each EI file processed by the department. We are hiring more staff, and we will continue to accelerate the process, and I would like to once again thank my parliamentary secretary for his recommendations.
Victoria.
Far too many Canadian seniors reach retirement and find they don't have enough savings to live comfortably. Public pensions just haven't kept pace with rising costs and changing workplaces, leaving seniors struggling to meet their most basic needs. And the situation's just getting worse. Yet still the Conservatives refuse calls from the provinces and from millions of Canadians to boost the Canada Pension Plan. Why is the minister still blocking action? Doesn't he agree that all Canadian seniors deserve to retire in dignity?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians do not want to pay higher taxes. Ontarians should be aware that the Liberals' new mandatory deduction would force a family with 2 workers to pay as much as $3,200 more each and every year. Mr. Speaker, that's the opposition way. They consistently asked us to raise taxes. They consistently are looking for ways to take money out of the pockets of Canadians. We won't let that happen.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. More and more seniors are facing a precarious financial future. Retirees are realizing that the Canada Pension Plan has not kept pace with the cost of living. Canadians in the provinces are asking for better coverage. Retired Canadians deserve to live in dignity. Why are the Conservatives refusing to work with workers and the provinces to improve the Canada Pension Plan?
Honourable Minister
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, we just answered the question. We recognize on this side of the House that Canadians do not want to pay higher taxes. Payroll taxes, income taxes, whatever the tax, Canadians don't need higher taxes. Mr. Speaker, this Ontarian new plan that would take up to $3,200 from each family where there are two, up to that for each family where there's two people working. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals, the New Democratic Party, they keep looking for new ways to tax. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're going to keep looking for ways that we can keep money in the pockets of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. An OECD analysis confirms that reducing economic inequality stimulates economic growth. Government policy should focus on low-income and lower-middle-class families. The OECD notes that Canada has one of the highest levels of inequality in the world. Does the Conservative government understand that their ideologically driven policies are hurting socio-economic development? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we have seen since the election of this government in 2006 a major decrease in the number of low-income families in this country. We have taken over 800,000 families. We have saved them taxes. With the announcement the minister made last week, we will be giving a benefit of $1,200 a year to middle-class families, and this will particularly help low-income families.
Honourable Member for Newton North Delta.
Yet another report from the OECD highlights that Canada's wage gap is at an all-time high and warns of the negative impacts of growing income inequality. Liberals presided over a 94% increase in income inequality over the past 35 years, and the Conservatives accelerated the trend. At a time that our economy has been growing, more and more Canadians have fallen further behind. Why won't the minister take action to fight this trend by raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour?
The Honourable Minister of Employment. What do you have against $16? What about 16?
We are proud that there are more than 1.4 million fewer Canadians living under the poverty line than when this government took office, and the number of Canadians living below the low-income cutoff line at 8.8% is at its lowest level in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. And I'll tell you what, the best strategy to address income inequality and to help people in low-income situations is to ensure that they have good jobs. And that's exactly what this government is focused on. Jobs that would be killed by the NDP's idea of a massive hike in a minimum wage, Mr. Speaker. Instead, we're cutting people's taxes.
The Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Such lefty bastions as the TD Bank, CD Howe Institute, and now the OECD have all shown that income inequality not only hurts the far too many Canadians that are left behind, the growing gap is a direct threat to our fragile economy. Now, we know the finance minister isn't so keen on doing any actual analysis of his programs, but rather than make things better, Conservatives invent new ways to make things worse and give more money to the wealthiest Canadians. Will he finally drop his $3 billion income splitting scheme that does nothing for more than 85% of Canadians and help poor people out in this country for once?
Here's some analysis, Mr. Speaker. The lowest number of Canadians living in poverty in our country's history. 1.4 million fewer Canadians living in poverty than under the previous Liberal government. Canadians' wealth has increased dramatically, with the median net worth of our families increasing by 45% since this government took office and by almost 80% since 1999. Families benefiting on average by $3,400 in tax cuts, which will be enhanced through the family tax cut that will give low-income families with two young kids, Mr. Speaker, $3,800 a year just in the child care benefit. Why does the NDP vote against these policies to help families?
The Honourable Member for Random Durham St. George's.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Veterans Affairs has overseen the clawback of over $1 billion that Parliament approved for veterans. He has cut frontline services that veterans desperately need. He has rewarded staff with thousands of dollars for denying veterans access to mental health services. Does the Prime Minister really believe that no one else on the Conservative caucus can do a better job than this minister? What message is he sending to Canadians who elected the other Conservative MPs?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government has delivered, and today there are more services, more programs, more benefits, and more points of service for our veterans and their families. And here are the facts, Mr. Speaker. They voted, the opposition voted against funeral and burial funding. They voted against career transition services. Terrible. They voted against career transition services, as I indicated, plus, Mr. Speaker, they voted against the Children of Deceased Veterans Education Assistance Program, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we stand up for our veterans, not for against them.
The Honourable Member for West Melville Marie.
Mr. Speaker, in the last 3 weeks, we have learned that the Veterans Department has took back $1.13 billion from veterans and shed a quarter of its employees. Veterans are waiting months, if not years, before receiving mental health services. We learned that the minister misled us on new funding, which will in reality be paid out over 50 years, and that so-called cuts to back-office administration have actually affected programs and front-line staff. When will the Prime Minister fire this incompetent and insensitive minister? Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that gracious question. But we have brought, in fact, real services, meaningful programs for our veterans, and will continue to do so. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that they voted against the disability and death compensation, voted against the earning loss and supplementary retirement benefits, voted against the Veterans Independence Program, and a host of other programs and services. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we deliver for our veterans.
The Honourable Member for
Mr. Speaker, after 10,000 complaints last year, HRDC is getting 400 new staff to deal with the mess they created, and ministerial staffers are up 21%. Meanwhile, Veterans Affairs cut nearly 1,000 jobs, most of them frontline service delivery, the kind identified by the Auditor General as causing delays in veterans receiving the help they need. Veterans' calls aren't being answered, and their benefits are delayed and denied. Why do veterans always come last with these Conservatives?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, since our government came into power, we have in fact increased substantially the benefits and services and programs available to veterans. The short story, of course, is that while we vote against certain issues, while they vote against certain issues, we are promoting veterans programs and services flat out. We continue to do that. We're very focused, and we'll continue to provide services and programs to our veterans on the front line where they count, not in the back rooms.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, today the Assembly of First Nations honoured Renelle Harper, a survivor of a horrific attack, who just a month ago was left for dead on a riverbank in Winnipeg. This courageous young woman shows strength and compassion by asking people to remember these words: love, kindness, respect, and forgiveness. She also asked for a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. Will this government honour Renelle Harper and call an inquiry?
Here. The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, what happened to Renelle Harper was an appalling and horrific crime. Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with this brave young woman and her family, who shows tremendous courage today, and I'm sure will in the future. Thanks to the actions of this family's brave actions, working with police in the local Winnipeg area, they were able to apprehend her attackers. The police deserve significant recognition for what they did. Now, Canadians can count on this government to make sure that we take violent crime, including those against women and girls, very seriously.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-Papineau-Mirabel. Today, Renelle Harper joined her voice
courageously to the thousands of people who are demanding a national public inquiry on the fate of the 1,200 missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Canada. She is joining the families of victims, the provinces, and civil society who have all understood that in order to go forward, we have to understand the causes of this violence. Will the government honor and listen to Ronelle Harper and these thousands of voices and launch a national inquiry? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said several times in this House, our government has moved forward with actions that families have specifically asked for. So let me quote one of those families. The action plan that the government has moved forward with is one our families have been waiting for. I'd like to thank the government for the commitment to address this issue. We've had numerous studies on this issue, and action is required now. We can't stand by idly and talk without taking significant action. The action plan will have a direct impact on families and will help keep our women and girls safe. Now, Bernadette Smith and her family are very focused on action, as are many across the country. Our government's taking that action.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations High Commission on Refugees is organizing a meeting in Geneva today to promote the relocation of 100,000 refugees who are victims of the civil war in Syria. The UN is asking Canada to do its share. Up until now, only 163 sponsored refugees, sponsored by private groups, have arrived in Canada. Why are the Conservatives refusing to hear the UN's call? Why are they refusing to help the Syrian people? Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, with the resettlement of over 22,000 Syrian and Iraqi refugees in the past few years, Canada is doing more than its share and will continue to work on this front. But there's a problem, Mr. Speaker. This eve of Christmas, over 50 million displaced persons and refugees worldwide, and especially in the Middle East. Several million have fled brutality and violence by the Islamic State. So why is the NDP refusing to commit Canada to a military effort that could save millions of lives?
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about the worst humanitarian crisis the world has seen in decades, yet despite pleas from the United Nations, calls from Canadians, and warnings from groups like Amnesty International, and despite his own department telling him that Canada could do much, much more for many more Syrian refugees, this minister sits idly by and does nothing. This is unconscionable. How can the minister justify his refusal to act when so many lives hang in the balance?
Mr. Speaker, it's a tragedy that the NDP terms 22,000 Syrians and Iraqis resettled in this country in recent years, doing nothing. Is he really going to stand up in this Christmas season and say to Canadians that they have done nothing by being more generous than any country in the world? And is he going to stand up and face 50 million plus refugees, internally displaced, millions who fled their homes to save their very lives in Iraq and Syria, that he and his party will do absolutely nothing to save them from ISIL's brutality, to work together with our allies against terrorism?
The Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, during the election campaign in my riding of Yellowhead, farmers came to me time and time again saying that they didn't understand the policies of the Liberals and the NDP. They are stuck in the past, holding on to antiquated ideas, grain monopolies that prohibit marketing freedom. I am proud to say to them that our government stands for the Western Canadian grain sector. Can the Minister of Agriculture please tell this House what the latest measures our government has taken to modernize the grain sector?
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank and congratulate my colleague from Yellowhead for that question. He's absolutely right. No one in Western Canada understands what these guys mean when they talk ag policy. They really don't have any. Today, our government took another step in modernizing Canada's grain industry with the introduction of Bill C-48. This legislation will enhance producer protections and improve grain quality and safety assurances to our customers around the world. It will also modernize the Canadian Grain Commission to make it more responsive to the needs of farmers in this great era of marketing freedom, which, of course, their only policy would be to take that away, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, earlier in question period, the Prime Minister said that he will not regulate GHG emissions from the oil and gas sector. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he is in fact breaking his promise to regulate the oil and gas sector?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, the government has been pursuing our sector-by-sector regulatory approach. We've integrated our regulations in the transport sector with the United States. On the electricity sector, we've been ahead, gone much farther than the United States. I've been very clear, Mr. Speaker, in terms of regulating the oil and gas sector. It is something we would like to do, but that we must do on an integrated basis in a continental economy. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, under the current circumstances of the oil and gas sector, it would be crazy. It would be crazy economic policy to do unilateral penalties on that sector. We're clearly not going to do it.
Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, back in 2007, he promised in this House, and I quote, he will bring in a national system of regulation for the control of greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution, unquote. So now, as countries from around the world act as the largest emitters act, including China and the U.S., this Prime Minister and that government are letting Canadians down. So will the Prime Minister live up to his promise?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, nobody in the world is regulating the oil and gas sector. I'd be delighted if they did. Canada will be there with them. But we are not going to impose unilateral penalties. And let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, on the difference on this side of the House. Our commitment to Canadians is that we are going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while preserving, protecting, and growing Canadian jobs. That's our commitment. That's what we'll continue to do. We're not going to kill jobs, and we're not going to impose the carbon tax they want to put on Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Saint-Constant. We can't leave $1 billion on the table while our veterans don't have access to the care and services they were promised. Nor can we cut 9 regional centres, fire 1,000 employees who provide services to veterans while bonuses are being paid to senior managers. Will the Prime Minister finally realize that veterans no longer have any trust whatsoever in this minister who refuses to admit the mess he's made? The Honourable Minister.
In fact, there are back office positions in almost every segment of Veterans Affairs Canada. And a few examples, Mr. Speaker, of the efficiencies that we've created. The government stopped asking veterans to show us their receipts for all kinds of transactions that had to be processed, and that saved 100 positions, Mr. Speaker. In the Disability Branch program, 12 photocopy and processing clerks were reduced when we moved to digitized records. And we make no apologies, Mr. Speaker, for the reductions in bureaucratic waste of taxpayers' dollars and turning that into benefits for veterans and their families.
The Honourable Member for Sackville Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When young men and women from Canada go off to war, Mr. Speaker, they and their families need to know that their government and their country will care for them in the event they become physically disabled or mentally challenged or pay the ultimate sacrifice. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I asked the question to the Minister of Veterans Affairs about do they have a sacred obligation to care for them. He wouldn't answer it. So my question directly to the Prime Minister of Canada, does the Prime Minister of Canada believe that they have a fiducial, legal, moral, and social obligation to care for the heroes of our country?
Hello. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our record shows that we care deeply about the welfare and the well-being of our veterans and their families. Under the leadership of this Prime Minister, our government has made substantial improvements to the new Veterans Charter, and the supports available to veterans. Mr. Speaker, the government does not comment on matters before the court, except to say that this matter deals exclusively with something that all parties agreed to under the previous government.
The honourable member for Mount Kent.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to ask but fail to receive answers from the Minister of Public Safety on why agencies under his authority are failing to act to protect Canadians from known terrorists returned home to Canada. The Minister confirmed they violated the law. Definitely, it's not about a lack of laws, it's about a lack of government resolve to enforce the law. That's right. Why is this government failing to act to keep Canadians safe from such terrorists returning home to Canada?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to be part of a government who has passed the Protecting Canadian Against Terrorists. I am proud, Mr. Speaker, to be sitting in this House with members who are supporting more measures and who will support more measures. What will be the opposition do? Would they be part of this journey to fight terrorists, to fight those travel fighters? And are they ready to provide the tools to our law enforcement agency and national security? Mr. Speaker, on this House, on this side of the House, we are protecting Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Scarborough.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment must be very pleased with herself. Yesterday, her own department contradicted her assertion that we are on target to meet our 2020 commitments. Last week, the senior diplomat in the world came and chastised Canada for its failure to show leadership on climate change. Today, we learned that we're 58 out of 61 countries on climate change progress. Thank goodness for Saudi Arabia and Iran, otherwise we'd be dead last. So, Mr. Speaker, if we're only 2% of the problem, why is it we're only 0% of the solution?
Great question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, that's ridiculous. Under the Liberals, greenhouse gas emissions rose 30%. It's our government that's the government that is reducing emissions while supporting economic growth and job creation. And we're achieving this, Mr. Speaker, without damaging the economy like the Liberals and NDP would do with their job-killing carbon tax. In 2012, Mr. Speaker, greenhouse gas emissions were 5.1% lower than in 2005, while the economy grew 10.6% during the same period. Canada's 2020 greenhouse gas emissions are projected to be 130 megatons lower than they would have been under the Liberals.
The honourable member for St. John South Mount Pearl.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador is coming to Ottawa because Conservatives are backing away from a promise they made to our province. Conservatives committed to $280 million in compensation after they bargained away our minimum processing requirements in CETA negotiations. They've since been trying to break that promise. So what's the deal now, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the Fishery Fund was announced more than 2 years ago with money that was to be spent on research and marketing. Is the $280 million on the table for Newfoundland and Labrador, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of State for Guam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government remains committed to working out the details of the NPR fund with the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. This minimum processing requirement fund was to compensate for anticipated losses from the removal of minimum processing requirements. It was never intended as a blank check that would give Newfoundland and Labrador an unfair advantage over other maritime provinces. We remain open to receiving proposals from our provincial counterparts on how to implement the Minimum Processing Requirement Fund initiative.
The honourable member for Rimouski, Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques.
We need to see what it is that we're supporting. The NDP is taking the responsible approach of waiting for all details, including promised compensation, before approving this deal.
As our leader said, we support free trade agreements that reduce tariffs and eliminate obstacles that are harmful to our businesses. But even European investors are against the dispute settlement mechanism between investors and states. So why are the Conservatives insisting on imposing this dispute settlement mechanism? The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
As with all of our free trade agreements, in CETA we've arrived at a good balance, promoting Canada's interests on the world stage, opening up new markets for Canada's exporters and investors. Mr. Speaker, this trade agreement with the European Union
is expected to create 80,000 new jobs in Canada. That's an additional $12 billion worth of economic activity in our country. We're standing up for Canadians. We'll take no lessons from the NDP.
The honourable member for Whitby, Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, constituents in my riding of Whitby, Oshawa know that only our Conservative government will help Canadian families by putting their money back where it belongs, in their pockets. Can the Minister of Employment please update this House on the various measures our government has put in place to help families from coast to coast to coast?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me join with all of our colleagues in welcoming the honourable member for Whitby, Oshawa to the House of Commons. We know the member was elected by the hard-working voters of Whitby, Oshawa, in part to deliver the family tax cut, Mr. Speaker. A tax cut that will benefit 100% of Canadian families with kids under the age of 18, Mr. Speaker. That will, 2/3 of the benefits of which will go to low and modest income families, Mr. Speaker. In fact, did you know that a single parent making $50,000 with 2 kids will see $1,000 in relief and benefits, and families earning less than $30,000 will see $1,200 in benefits?
The honourable member for Markham, Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, today the United Nations asked countries to commit to 100,000 more refugees from Syria. From Syria, Mr. Speaker, not Iraq. And Canada's commitment was zero. Nothing at all beyond the pathetic 1,300 that we've already committed to. So my question, why has this government reneged on the long-standing commitment of Liberal and progressive Conservative governments to provide refuge to the oppressed of the world?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, it says a lot about the honourable member and the party that he represents, that he would term 22,000 Iraqi and Syrian refugees settled in recent years to this country pathetic. Mr. Speaker, Canada has done more than its part. Canada will continue to do more. What would save millions of more lives in Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere is coordinated action with Arab allies, with NATO allies, to oppose ISIL terrorism, Mr. Speaker, to make this winter safer for millions of people who had to leave their house, who've been running save their very lives. Mr. Speaker, that's what this government has been prepared to do. We still can't understand why the Liberal Party is...
The honourable member for La Pointe de Lille. While Canada presents itself as a welcoming country for foreign students, students who are absolutely blameless are seeing their bank accounts abruptly closed because of their Iranian origin. Economic sanctions against Iraq were put in place to exert pressure on the Iranian government. So what is the government doing to ensure that Iranian foreign students are not unjustly affected by these sanctions?
The
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
We're prepared to work to support young people all over the world, but this government makes no apologies for the tough sanctions regime we put in place. But we have real concerns about the human rights record in this regime. It's deteriorated. Canadians can be very proud of the leadership of this Prime Minister, this government, and the important work that we do to press the case for human rights in this country.
The honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, the Ontario Liberals' new mandatory payroll tax could force a two-worker family to pay up to $3,200 more each year.
It is tragic.
A recent study says small business owners believe the Liberal payroll tax hike could be their greatest challenge ever faced. My constituents are alarmed and want the federal government to keep taxes low. Can the Minister of State for Finance please update the House on Canada's low tax plan?
That's an excellent question.
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is absolutely correct. We know that Canadians do not want to
pay more money in payroll taxes or in any other taxes. And that's why we've lowered taxes in every way that we collect them. We've also moved forward on new measures, Mr. Speaker, that would help Canadians save for retirement. We've brought forward measures like the tax-free savings account. We've introduced pension income splitting for seniors. We've brought forward the pool registered pension plan and consulted over the target benefit pension plan. Mr. Speaker, despite the opposition's reckless high tax plans, we continue to take action to put money into the pockets of
the honourable member for Vancouver East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to advertising, pharmaceutical companies appear to have free rein. Apparently, the minister believes that these companies should just regulate themselves. A newly released study shows Health Canada is failing on its advertising regulatory responsibilities. And when Canadians complain about public safety risks, a private chat with the company is all that's required according to this government. Why does the minister refuse to enforce her own department's regulations?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what the article that the member is referring to and read and is quoting from MIST is that the law is now clear. Under the new law, which is Vanessa's law, tough new fines and jail time for companies who violate drug laws, including advertising, can be imposed. Our laws for prescription drug advertising are far stronger than those in the U.S. and comparable to the EU. And the law is clear. Advertising prescription drugs to consumers is prohibited. So any complaints will be reviewed and we will act.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, just because the government snubbed the ceremonies commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Polytechnique massacre, Quebecers have not forgotten this heinous and misogynistic crime. The Premier of Quebec has made a commitment to re-establishing a firearms registry. The bill is ready, the personnel is in place, all that's missing is the data that the government wants to destroy. Why doesn't the government make honourable amends by putting an end to these costly legal procedures and giving Quebec the data for which its population has already paid? The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we remember that these crimes that took place at the Polytechnique 25 years ago were actually atrocious crimes. These women were put in harm's way. These women were murdered because they were simply women. We'll continue to support victims of these crimes and punish the criminals that perpetuate them. And this government has been standing up for victims. So whether it be the creation of a DNA missing persons index or the Victims' Bill of Rights, we here are focused on making sure that victims of crimes are supported and that we put criminals behind bars, unlike the opposition, who continue to vote against all of these issues.
That concludes question period for today.
I would like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of Mr. Jacques Chagnon, Speaker of the Quebec National Assembly.
I have the honour to inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing this House that the Senate has passed the following bill. Bill C-8, an act to amend the Copyright Act and the Trademarks Act and to make consequential amendments to other acts. And I have the honour to inform the House that a communication has been received which is as follows. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to inform you that the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor-General of Canada, will proceed to the Senate chamber the 9th day of December 2014 at 4 p.m. for the purpose of giving royal assent to certain bills of law. Yours sincerely, Stephen Wallace.
I have the honour to inform the House that I have received a message. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to inform you that the Right Honourable David Johnston, the Governor-General for Canada, will be going to the Senate today, December 9th at 4 p.m. for the purpose of giving royal assent to certain bills. Signed, Stephen Wallace.
Orders of the day, order du jour.
Government orders, government bills, comment. Resuming debate, the third reading stage of Bill C-43, Economic Action Plan 2000.
Resuming debate, will you please demand the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for pleased to rise today and speak on this important legislation, Bill C-43, which includes provisions that will support jobs, economic growth, families, and communities. In addition to the measures making the tax system simpler and fairer for farming and fishing businesses, extending the existing tax credits, doubling the children's fitness tax credit, and much more, we are also bringing in changes to support our transportation system. I'd like to turn our attention to the amendments of the Canada Marine Act. Canadian port authorities operate Canada's 18 major ports. Canadian port authorities are considered key economic drivers and vital to Canada's domestic and international trade objectives. Our government is committed to creating the right conditions to ensure that we have competitive ports to support our aggressive trade agenda. The proposed amendments to the Canada Marine Act are part of the plan